Nick Foles did it. Earlier this year, we witnessed one of the most improbable Super Bowls in NFL history. A backup quarterback beat Tom Brady and the Patriots to become Super Bowl 52 champions. But this story is far from over. This event led to the most intriguing dilemma heading into the 2018 season. Who is the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback? As the city of Philadelphia celebrates their first Super Bowl, differing opinions are rumbling in the media about who is going to lead the team this year. On one hand, Carson Wentz is one of the most promising young franchise QBs in the league, but some people aren't ready to turn their backs on the godsend that delivered a championship fans have been waiting 57 years for. Most of us say, easy, go back to Wentz. And I agree, but it's not that simple. Wentz is supposedly ahead of schedule in his rehab, but this is a familiar nightmare I hope doesn't happen again. He tore his LCL along with his ACL. It's the same injury RG3 had, and like Robert Griffin, Carson Wentz probably has to wear a brace for the rest of his career. This is usually a 10 to 11 month recovery. That's cutting it really close. We all know what might happen if he rushes back, but Wentz is determined to play in that game. The Eagles are faced with the most important decision that will shape the next decade of the franchise. How did we get here? The King of Philadelphia was supposed to be Carson Wentz, but it's not. How did St. Nick become the defining underdog moment of this generation? Let's find out. Come on, Philly fans, you know you love this guy. Andy Reid drafted Nick Foles in the third round of the 2012 draft. Michael Vick was the starter at the time, but in Week 10 during the 2012 season, Vick got a concussion versus the Cowboys, and Foles showed enough to take over as QB1 for the rest of the year. The Eagles went 4-12 that year and fired Andy Reid, but what happened next, no one saw coming.
Ian Rappaport reporting now that Chip Kelly has changed his mind and will indeed become the next head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Chip Kelly took over as head coach and couldn't decide who he liked at quarterback. These three dudes played musical chairs with the position, but in Week 9, Foles had the audacity to do this.
Foles is airing it out for Riley Cooper. He's got it. That's a touchdown, Eagles. Nick Foles finishes with 406 yards, 22 completions, and 7 touchdowns.
He obviously took full command of the job after that, but unfortunately lost to the Saints in the playoffs that year. He ended up throwing for 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and had a quarterback rating of 119. He also went to the Pro Bowl that year. Now this is where Foles' career takes a wild turn. The next year didn't go as smoothly at all, and Foles broke his collarbone in Week 9 versus the Texans. His season was over, and his ride with the Eagles seemed to be over also. Nick got caught up in the firestorm of many questionable decisions made by Chip Kelly that had him traded with some picks to the Rams for Sam Bradford. The 2015 season started out hot, but fizzled out in a big way. Foles ended up playing terribly for the Rams and was eventually replaced by Case Keenum. The writing was on the wall, and Nick asked for his release, which the Rams granted. Check out this dude's mentality about how his career turned out at the time. He had some major soul-searching to do. He talked to his wife, his family, then he went on a fly fishing trip with his brother-in-law to decide if he wanted to leave football behind, but his faith led him to give it one more shot. That's not surprising as someone who plans to become a pastor after football. So the next season, he follows a familiar face and signs with the Chiefs and Andy Reid, the coach who drafted him. He got his opportunity in Week 8 when Alex Smith got a concussion, and he played really well. He threw for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. The next week, he got another win against the Jags, but they gave the job back to Smith in Week 10, and that was it. The Chiefs cut Foles after that season. But don't give up on St. Nick yet. He ended up signing with the Eagles, and this is where our boy Carson Wentz comes back into the picture. Philly just traded the farm to take Wentz number 2 overall in the 2016 draft, so Foles obviously had to sit and wait for another opportunity to prove himself. Well, it didn't happen that year, and the future looked bleak because Wentz turned into an absolute monster the following year. He led the Eagles to a 10-2 start and was the favorite to win the MVP. But this is where our drama originates at, and in Week 14 against the Rams, the Eagles fans' hopes were crushed when Wentz blew out his knee diving for a touchdown. Foles became the starter for the rest of the year, but a lack of confidence had some fans writing off the seemingly dream season. But Nick Foles wasn't having any of that. He led the Eagles to a playoff victory against the Falcons and earned a berth to the NFC Championship game. Foles proceeded to put some ass whoop on the Vikings in the next week and got his team to the Super Bowl, winning 38-7. And here we are. The franchise who never climbed the mountain finds themselves up against the greatest dynasty the NFL has ever seen. But what happened next shocked the world.
Escapes the sack, launching one for the end zone. It's a jump ball.
Are you really going to replace the only man to ever deliver your team a Super Bowl? Nick Foles did the impossible and took his place as King of Philadelphia. The celebration period is over and September 6th is right around the corner. What if Carson Wentz isn't ready for Week 1 and Foles picks up where he left off? Only time will tell.
Doug Peterson says it's too soon to say who will start Week 1, but right now Nick Foles is working with the first-team offense, while Carson Wentz continues working his way back from a torn ACL.
Ultimately, this is, Carson's getting ready to play. He's getting healthy, but at the same time, I'm ready to go out there and play. I'm equipped. I think I kind of stay by my goal that I said a while ago is just Week 1. Preseason, we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell, but my goal is still targeting Week 1.
When he's ready, 100%. Then we'll put him out there. But until that time, we're going to continue to keep him working and progressing along.